So I don't know if you all know this, but Christmas is a relatively new invention in the world, at least as we know it now, how it's sort of done these days. Because most of you know that there's no biblical day mentioned for the birth of Jesus, and that the date of December 25th was chosen as it was close to the pagan ritual of Saturnalia and a few other things. So they thought, oh, this will be a great day. We're going to celebrate it on this day. It actually was first named in about the 4th century as a kind of holy day. But it really didn't stick that much, at least not as a holy day. What you might not know is the vital role that Unitarians and the Universalists, when they were two separate denominations, played in shaping the Christmas that we know now. Let me give you just a very brief zip-through time here. Once upon a time, the Puritans landed on the shores of this new world, right, with the dream of wanting to worship and govern themselves their own way, that is, very strictly and according to only to biblical rules and laws and teachings. So, of course, out went Christmas. Can't have Christmas. And literally, in New England, for 23 years in the late 17th century, it was outlawed. There was a 5-shilling fine if you were caught celebrating Christmas. That's how they really did not want Christmas. So why were they so upset? It wasn't just the biblical reason, although that was certainly enough for them, but actually the biggest reason was that Christmas by this time had become this, how would I want to put it? Like, it was a big party. And it was really a big party for the lower classes. So it was sort of this drunken, wanton behavior and this social upheaval that would happen as the lower classes, because really there were only two classes, there was lower class and there was upper class, and the lower classes would literally invade the homes of the upper class and in kind of a trick-or-treat kind of way basically say, feed me lots of food or I'm going to cause trouble. And there's lots of instances of people actually going with the trick part of it when they weren't given the treat. So this is sort of the upper classes' way of sort of keeping the lower classes happy. Like they kind of expected it, and so they would definitely have food. Because you remember in the wintertime, if you were in the lower classes back then, you couldn't work the farm. There really wasn't much to do. All you did was really slaughter for food because there wasn't much else to eat. So you had lots of meat, and it was also the time when wine and beer had fermented. So you got a lot of partying going on. Now you can imagine that this would not go over well with the Puritans, right? But the Puritans weren't the only ones coming over here, and a lot of people wanted to do this. So by the late 18th century, early 19th century, you had also this new thing that was happening here in the United States and on other places around the world, was you started to have the development of the middle class, right? And you also had, at that time, the growth of the liberal arm of religion. So you have the Puritans, right, the staunch, stern Puritans over there. They're the parents, and all the kids are like, whatever, Mom and Dad, we're going to go start our own religion. So they started the more liberal side of the religion, and that was the Unitarians and the Universalists. And these were the Congregationalists all over New England and Boston. I don't think you could have hit anything else if you threw a stone except for a Unitarian and a Universalist. This was our time of our heyday. We had a lot of power at that time. And the Unitarians were more socially conservative, but they wanted to celebrate the holiday as well as the Universalists, but they wanted to get rid of any of that drunken wantonness. They really wanted it to be a holy day. And they thought it was they didn't really care that it wasn't in the Bible. They were like, look, we need to celebrate the birth of our Savior. Let's do this. So they decided to change it. And there was this concerted effort on behalf of particularly of the Unitarians and the Universalists to, one, make it an actual holiday, because it wasn't up until then. People still had to work on Christmas. And in some places, actually, it didn't actually change until the 1950s. Believe it or not, people were expected to work, particularly in factories and things like that. But there was a concerted to make it a holiday, which didn't go over well with some of the upper class. And they also wanted to make it about charity, about giving and generosity, right? And one of the biggest proponents of this new type of Christmas, you all know, right? There we go, Christmas Carol, right? Charles Dickens was a Unitarian, and he was part of this movement that wanted to change the understanding of what Christmas was. So The Christmas Carol, which was published in 1843, was an immediate hit, right? It focused on the redemption of a very somber man and mean-spirited guy, Ebenezer Scrooge, who embraces a new Christmas spirit after being visited by 3 ghosts who show him the importance of familial relationships, right? And the importance of helping those in need. So Dickens' story was so successful that he wrote a new Christmas story every year with similar themes for the next 24 years. They're not nearly as good, but they are. This was his big hit. What Dickens and others didn't foresee was the problems that he and other of these liberal religions, the Unitarians and the Universalists, the problems that they caused out of all of this and all of the expectations. So let me talk about some of these Christmas issues. So first of all, they created sort of a standard of familial bliss, right? Despite estrangements in your family, everyone is supposed to get along on Christmas, right? Or you can just see Tiny Tim, God bless us, everyone. Had he said that a million times and, Mom wanted to smack him upside the head, I have no idea. But, these things that happen, we're all supposed to get along and have a happy day at Christmas. The other thing that they did is that they launched an entire industry of gift giving at Christmas. And now gift giving has gone around, it's been around for a while, gift giving around Christmas, but UUs wanted to focus on charity. That was their focus. They wanted to give to people who had less. Not so much about giving away presents to everyone, but out of that idea of giving gifts, charity or otherwise, this huge Christmas industry. I mean, it was like overnight. The Christmas tree was like, yeah, great, we're going to put this out there. And now you have, these commercials that show people literally fighting to get the best deal. You have people being trampled, right? Trying to get into the store at midnight on Black Friday. And that, unfortunately, it often starts right after Thanksgiving, or even starts before Thanksgiving. So this, in turn, has created a huge amount of financial stress for a lot of people. You've got to have a feast, right? You got to have presents, you got to have stockings, you got to have decorations, and you make sure you're not working, right? There can be anger and resentment and heartbreak because many cannot meet these unrealistic expectations. And of course, the last thing is you're supposed to be happy, right? Sing a song of Merry Christmas, which I love it. But it's like this, just sing a song and everything will be great. And you're supposed to be happy during the entire season. Bells are ringing, everybody's making merry. And what about that grief? What about loss that may have happened? And of course people are fine with it, but there's sort of this expectation that you're supposed to be happy. There's this kind of perfectionism that pervades Christmas. Right? We've got to have the perfect tree, to the perfect wrapping presents, to making sure you have the perfect gift for that person that you love, to the expectation of being happy perfectly. I'm reminded of a friend of mine who every year she always has 2 very tastefully done up Christmas trees, never the same one every year. And she wraps presents like they're like art forms, right? Yeah, you're lucky if you get it wrapped from me, okay? I figure I'm going to rip into the thing anyway, so, In our reading, it said, the hardest part to reconcile is that the heart is not always in sync with angels, presents, babes in a manger, and the ho, ho, ho that is Christmas. Sometimes it feels like you just go through the motions because that's what's expected. So what do? I think we can take sort of some lessons from history, right? We, the Unitarians and the Universalists, we changed history. We changed how Christmas was done. And maybe we can change things again. Maybe we can create the Christmas that maybe we need and want, not just what is expected. And I'd like to acknowledge that not everyone celebrates Christmas, even here in this room, but I think in this culture it's a dominant feature of this. And so no matter what you kind of just have to deal with it one way or another. So I'd like you to take just a moment in silence to think. I asked you how you felt about Christmas, and some of you may feel perfectly fine about Christmas, really looking forward to it. So what is Christmas to you? And what does a good Christmas look like? Just take a moment to think about that. what does a good Christmas look like? And if you could change anything about Christmas, what might it be? And how might you make it easier for those that you love? You know, some people embrace this holiday wholeheartedly. They wear hats. They have, you know, their sweater lights up. Sarah. My twin sister, Regan, she loves Christmas. This is her holiday. She totally gets into it. Every once in a while, she'll have a year where she's not so much into it. But this year, also, she's back in her form. She's the neighbor, you know, who has the stuff on the roof and the lawn and the lights up all everywhere. They drive back and all the cars slow down. That's my sister. You know, she loves Christmas so much that her October wedding, she wore a red dress with white fur and had Christmas decorations, okay? I'm just saying, she loves Christmas. And it's kind of funny because I'm just not that into Christmas. I mean, I like Christmas. I like it just fine. But I find the materialism and the commercialism, it kind of annoys me, and my own perfectionism. My thing is not so much the wrapping of the gifts, because like I said, I just put the basic. I don't even do ribbon anymore, because it's just going into the trash, and that just bothers me. But I'm always trying to find the perfect gift, right? And I struggle with this, because I hate malls. I don't want to go to a mall. Thank God for Amazon.com. But that weighs on me, always trying to find that perfect gift. And I've learned over the years to slowly start making some changes about how I do things. So here are some things, and these are just some ideas. You probably have your own ideas, and I'm willing to bet that most of you have created a holiday that you like. But I want to offer these as some ideas for you. So first of all, I limit my gift giving. I don't give a lot of gifts anymore. I grew up in a family of 6 aunts and 22 cousins. And I can remember a time when we scrambled to try and get something for everyone, right? I mean, it was just a little something. We had to get something for everyone. We had big Christmas was at my grandmother's. And it kind of drove me crazy because my mother was a single mom. And then when she got multiple sclerosis, we were on food stamps and government subsidy. We really couldn't afford much. We tried to make things, but the stress that was on all of us trying to come up with even a little something for 22 plus 6 people was very hard. And I remember later in college, I worked to support myself and I didn't have a lot. Though every year I would scrimp and save because I had to be home with my twin sister for Christmas. So I tell you, I scrimped and saved all year long for that plane ticket home because of course I had to be in Pennsylvania, not in Seattle for graduate school. And also, but then there was always room for presents as well, and it was so stressful to do that. Now, since then, even when I have now funds to afford to give presents, I've cut way back. There's only a few people in my life that I give gifts to, mostly because most of the people in my life are my age and we can afford just about anything, right? I mean, you know, I'm a middle-class person. I don't need a lot anymore. My sister's family now, we have an agreement. We negotiated with my sister because she was, you know, all out. And I said, okay, 2 gifts and 5 stocking stuffers. That's it, each. That's all we do. Stocking stuffers is a big deal in my family. And they all have to be under $5, each of the stockings. So even if you can afford lots of gifts, be aware of those maybe who cannot afford it in your family. Help them to know that their presence, right, is all you need, not presents with a T. The other changes that I'm beginning to make is I give to charities more now. I do my best to do this. My older sister, Kim, who is probably the quintessential bah humbug when it comes to Christmas, So there's Regan on one end, and then you got Kim on the other, and it's kind of interesting. She really does not. She has never liked Christmas, and can I tell you, it shows in her gifts. She just does not put any really thought into it. And this year, she said, I've had it. I'm not doing any gifts this year. I'm taking all of my Christmas money, and I'm giving it to this charity, and it helps DACA students and the homeless. And I was like, yes, excellent. Thank you, Kim, because really I don't want another gift that you really don't like. Trust me. So we're all, I'm thrilled that she's doing that. It makes me feel good. So, and this year, our church, we gave to Stand Up for Kids, right? Remember if you were here, we were taking some money. We ended up sponsoring 15 youth at Stand Up for Kids along with 5 or 6 other churches. And those 15 youth, I'm telling you, yesterday I went to the gift giving where they seriously, like a mountain of gifts, okay? There had to be, 60 kids that were there. These are all homeless kids, right? And this mountain of gifts, and they all get their gifts, and then in one big fell swoop, they all open it at once. And the thing about these gifts is that they are not just things that they need, like shoes and socks. They can get those in other ways. They had this huge table of used clothing that they could pick through and get through and everything like that. These were things that the kids really wanted. And Judith, I know, who was organized as all this, she went and she took a lot of us donated money and say, yeah, here. And so she went out and she bought the gifts. She said, I bought them the best things I could find. There were Apple products. There were shoes that were like, fancy Vans. I don't know what kids like these days. But there were, and the look of joy on these kids' faces, I'm telling you, that's what's really needed at Christmas. Because I met these 3 kids. One of them was an older boy, and he was taking care of his 2 younger kids. They're homeless, living in their car. And for them to get a gift that somebody out there and bought for them of exactly what they wanted, it meant so much to them. So it's so easy to give money. I thought, okay, I'll give some money to this, and I gave some money. But then when you get involved and you go and you see what an impact it can have, boy, that really helps you realize what Christmas is about. And I encourage you to do that if you get a chance to go to a shelter or someplace and help out. But there's one other thing. There's family, right? Family issues that come up. Right? I remember one year, back in my 20s, my 3 siblings and I sat at Christmas dinner with my mother. Each of us trying to ignore the tension in the room. Each of us trying not to upset our mother or snap at one another. Each of us playing our roles of placater, rabble-rouser, manipulator, and peacemaker. And my older sister, I remember afterwards, just being so tense the entire dinner. We're all trying to making small talk. Nobody's saying anything really of substance. And I remember talking to my older sister later about how odd that meal went, and she said, yeah, I called it the liar's table. Because we're all lying that we're happy to be there, and we weren't. We're just pretending because that's what you're supposed to do during Christmas with family. And I realized after that, no, I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to do things that spending Christmas with those that, I want to be with those that bring me joy. Which is generally, quite frankly, my twin and her family, so that's where I generally spend Christmas. And they're going to be coming this year, so that's going to be wonderful. But I've learned that I'd rather spend Christmas alone than to go through something like that again. And I think it all had to do a lot with the expectations of what we were supposed to be that day. And the other thing is, grief in the holidays. There's a lot of it. There's a lot for the state of the world right now, but many people have lost loved ones, and they're no longer with us. So the main thing is make room for grief. People do this, and someone they love is no longer there, right, to share those traditions that they cherish. I remember my father, he was the easiest person in the world to buy a Christmas present for when he was alive, because he loved t-shirts. He wore t-shirts all the time. That's all he pretty much wore, except for maybe a big down jacket. But he loved specifically t-shirts from anywhere that you were traveling in the world, because a lot of his kids, we traveled a fair bit. So my first Christmas after he passed, I was in Australia living there, and I was looking around for Christmas presents to send home when I saw this bunch of t-shirts, and I remember thinking, oh, that's perfect for Dad. And then it hits you. Oh. And that happens in Christmas. Those traditions, those things that make us love Christmas now have to start all over again, and we go through that grief. So make room for your grief, and let others make room for it too. It can come out of nowhere sometimes. And don't buy into that hype that you have to be happy all the time. You know, people do different things, you know. I mean, I don't recommend you go up to people like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you know. Like, that's not necessarily helpful, pity. But acknowledging it, right? For example, some people make a place setting at their Christmas table for that person who passed. In my family, we would hold hands around the dinner table and name those we wish who could be here with us. And that always, of course, led to stories about the person. And one of the most healing things you can do with grief is tell stories. I recently heard of a really cool way to acknowledge grief. Just happened in the last couple weeks. About 10 days ago, I got an email from John Breen. Now, for those of you who don't know him, he's a congregant who comes here occasionally with his wife, Myra, and they have 2 adorable little girls. And John, he's a juggler, he works Renaissance fairs, he's into costumes and all that fun stuff. And it turns out he's a professional Santa. I did not know there was such a thing. He's a professional Santa. He has the suit and everything. And he wrote to me, and he said, did I know anyone who might need a Santa to hand out gifts to kids? You see, John had a dear friend, Eric, and Eric was a performer. He was a performer at Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, and the Titanic Experience, but is best remembered as Jedi Elvis. I love this. In that persona, he would perform Elvis songs written with Star Wars-themed lyrics, attired in classic white satin jumpsuit and accented with Star Wars emblems. And as if this were not enough, Eric kept a list of 50 things he wanted to do before his 50th birthday. But Eric died in his sleep in August from a heart attack before he turned 50. And a group of his friends wanted to honor his life by helping him complete his 50 by 50 list. Among the items on his list was to adopt a family in need at Christmas time and make sure that they have a great Christmas. So John Breen himself didn't have the funds to take it on, so he asked me, did I know of anyone who would like a Santa to pass out gifts? So I hooked him up with Stand Up for Kids, and yesterday he honored his friend by passing out a mountain of gifts for the kids. And here he is.
Oh.
You can see the beginning of the mountain on the left over there. It was a whole stage full of presents. What a lovely way to honor someone that you love. You know, we all deal with Christmas differently. We deal with perfectionism, right? We've got to be perfect. Want everybody to be happy. Sometimes when their heart just isn't there. We often don't realize the financial challenges that others face. Christmas is rarely exactly as we want it. So if you find that Christmas gives you more pain than joy, I encourage you to look at it why and think about how you can change how things are. Little things that maybe you can start putting some boundaries around and limitations. All traditions change and grow, but they have to be intentional, just as our theological ancestors were intentional about changing it. Because Christmas is coming whether we want it or not, whether we're ready or not. The Puritans tried to get rid of it, but it just didn't stick. I think because we all want something to celebrate. We want a joyful party, a place where we experience familial intimacy and support. So it's up to us to create Christmas in the bathroom with glitter, in our homes and in our hearts. Because Christmas isn't just about the joy or the razzle-dazzle. It's about creating space for the joy, the grief, the stress, the fun, the hope, the possibility. I'd like to end today with our words from our reading. So even if you can't deal with all the razzle-dazzle and expense of the holiday, at the very least open the inn door and prepare the manger of your heart for the gentle but powerful message that is seeking to be reborn in you. Never forget that you are a child of the universe, and where there is life, there is light and love and hope waiting to be reborn again and again and again. So turn on some twinkling lights, pour yourself a glass of eggnog, or not, and wait for that angel chorus to announce your heart's rebirth. Let us sing for joy.
Please stand as you're comfortable. Joy to the world.